Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of It's a DarMar. Today I have one amazing guest. His name is Maarten Verhoeven. Did I pronounce that good?
Very good, very good. Almost no mistakes in it.
Almost no mistakes. What was the
No,
mistake?
well, when you would pronounce it clearly in, let's say, Dutch, it's Verhoeven, but you do
Verhoeven?
it, yeah, but you do it better than, let's say, English-speaking people. They butcher my name all the time.
Thank you. But you're the first person that has two A's in his name that I'm speaking with. So this is gonna be a fun stream. I know it. I know it. So
Darko? Let's see.
you there, Martin? Martin. Okay, guys, we are having some technical difficulties. You can hear me, but Martin doesn't hear me. Let me check what's happening. Martin, can you hear me? Martin, can you hear me?
Here we are again.
Some technical difficulties, but we are back.
No, but it happens.
We are back. I don't know what happened. The guys can hear me on the stream, but it stopped with you. So
Okay,
I don't know what happened. Jesus.
okay, no problem, no problem.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, let's go for it. I made an introduction of you and let's start. So I'm so happy to have you on this stream because we will be talking about your techniques in ZBrush. We'll be talking about your career as an artist, also about 3D prints.
Yeah,
Your stuff is insane, man. I love it. I truly love it.
thanks.
So, can you introduce yourself a little bit? What do you do and how your career started? And if you can
Well,
share screen, sorry for interrupting because we see just the Skype.
okay, broke up again. Well, here's my screen and something coming in.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Let's do it.
So the thing is like I'm a digital sculptor. A lot of people ask me like, what do you do on a daily basis? What I do on a daily basis, like I work for the film and collectible industry, and I do concepts, digital maquettes, and stuff for print like prototyping. And my career started roughly 10 years ago when I picked up ZBrush. I was working in a post-production company for 5 years, and I saw one illustration done by the great Rick Baker, the makeup artist, right?
Okay.
And that changed my whole mindset about 3D because I studied animation around the 2000s, but it was a lot of box modeling and Lightwave. Not sure if you're familiar with Lightwave, but it's the old school stuff, right?
Unfortunately, I am, and now I understand how old I am. When you said that, I understand how old we are. Okay.
Yeah, no, but the thing is, like, it was great, like dabbling around in 3D back in the day. It sounds cool back in the day.
Like it was in the
Um,
50s.
Yeah, like it was. Well, it kind of feels like it is in the 50s when you look at it to it on a timeline. But it was box modeling back then, and only point modeling. And like I haven't touched any 3D when I was in my professional career. And then I saw this one illustration. And I was like, oh, what's this thing? Like it didn't look like anything that I left behind. Roughly 5-6 years before that moment, and what I saw was done in ZBrush, and it felt like something between claying, drawing, because I felt very, let's say, attracted to that image because I was always drawing since I was a kid and playing
Mm.
with clay and everything, and this kind of felt not as digital as it is, but it felt like pretty intuitive and organically, and I was like, what is this program? Picked it up, played around it for, let's say, 3 months or something. Then I posted up some work, and 6 months later, I quit my day job and I went freelance. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
see. I see. So the ZBrush was the main point for you how you started because for many artists it has been like that. The ZBrush is an insane tool. I mean, when Lightwave was there, and when Maya and other stuff. As you
Hmm.
said, it was polymodeling,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden we have ZBrush, which is something like 2.5D,
Yeah.
and and it opens your mind, like literally opens your mind. But you've been known to do some insane sculpts there on a higher level than most of the people. How did you get to that level to do this kind of sculpts that we see on your screen?
Well, I will scroll down to my. It's, it's true. My beginning of my portfolio, like it's long, but it kind of shows the journey of what I've been doing the past 5 years.
Mm.
So first I was doing, let's say, more realistic stuff like portraits and everything. But what I loved when I was sculpting in ZBrush was playing with details. But to even start thinking of details, you have to make sure that all your shapes are correct, of course. Your first forms, your secondary forms, then your tertiary forms, and then you start, let's say, having all the fun. But I was doing, let's say, more realistic stuff like horses, like naked ladies, portraits, and somehow like creatures came into my like I've been creating creatures all my life. I've been obsessed by them, but I wasn't doing them from the beginning in ZBrush. Like in the beginning, I was morely focused on studying the anatomy and studying the stuff in the real world, and then pushing forwards into concept design and everything that I was doing and am doing until this day.
Mm.
Um,
How did that connection with the creatures start? How did that connection? Why are you so inspired to do the creatures? Because when I look at your portfolio, there is a lot of scary stuff there. As
Yeah, there's a lot of scary stuff there, but the thing I will tell you, and I've told it to a lot of people over the years, like where everything went wrong during my life. Like I can kind of pinpoint everything, and it kind of
Okay.
went wrong, and it kind of went wrong with this guy. Uh,
Oh, Gremlin.
yeah, yeah, Gremlin. So when I was 6, 7 years old, something like my mom rented a movie for me. Uh, and the thing, like back in the day when you had video rental stores, like my mom picked up movies like when she went to town, came back, and she brought anything like with a creature. And during the 80s, like all those video covers, they looked innocent and harmless.
Mm.
But one day, let's say my mom brought home this video and thought it was actually, I think, a kids movie. And this thing, like this creature, completely triggered everything in me. And from then on, like I wanted to see everything that was out there, like creature monster wise, uh, done by and back then was all physical effects like puppets and makeup and animatronics, and that was actually my first love that I wanted to, let's say, study or find a job in. But like growing up in an age without internet, like if you even could find a book of a making of thing or something,
Ah,
like that
those
was already
50s.
special.
Ah, those 50s.
Yeah, those 50s.
Okay, okay. And yeah, it was. Sorry for interrupting, but yeah,
No,
it
no.
was hard to get the stuff. I remember when I was doing Gnomon was the only thing back then like that existed. But I can imagine in back those days, what could you find then? Like
Well, nothing like the only thing that you could see were actually movie specials or something, you know? Like if there was like a little bonus attached to VHS copy that was rare, or you saw like there was this program, it was called Movie Magic. Not sure if you ever seen it. You can find, I think, some episodes on YouTube, but that's really old. But that was Movie Magic, and they broadcasted that in Belgium, and they gave a behind the scenes thing how creatures and makeup and let's say the big effects were done
mm,
during those, and that thing completely triggered me because in the beginning, like when I saw movies, I always saw like, okay, so you see only the name of the director, right? So I was always thinking like, I think I need to be a director to eventually create monsters or creatures. And then I figured out like, oh no, but there are like a ton of people working on a movie. And yeah, when you grow up, you learn more, you see more books, then the internet popped up, and then like everything's open because you just Google it and you find it, you know?
mm, I see. Speaking about the gremlin, I always like that he falls in the water and starts spreading. That's how I see your work. It falls in the water of the internet and it starts spreading all around. That's how I found you.
Well, yeah, but that's also the thing that I tell to people. Like, I live in Belgium. There are practically no other digital sculptors in Belgium, and like the internet is my lifeline to the rest of the world. And the good thing is like by putting stuff on social media or places like ArtStation, like your stuff gets out there and gets to the right people, and eventually also delivers you jobs. So.
Mm.
Um, like there's always this struggle between people like, oh, you shouldn't go for the whole social media thing because like it's a scam and everything, and I'm a bit in the middle because it also can help you in your career if you're isolated outside of the whole industry, you know.
I completely agree with you because if there was no internet, I would never be visible on anywhere in the industry because I'm located in Serbia, literally isolated in a bunker. So the internet is very important. I completely agree with you. The social media stuff.
Yeah, and it's not about getting likes and everything, you know. Likes are virtual shoulder pads, but it's just to get your stuff to an audience. Like every artist creates art for himself, but he also likes to please a certain audience, and yeah, it takes also time for an audience to find you. And I think the only way that you can get an audience, especially when you do, let's say, more the special or let's say the monster or creature stuff, is to go online, you know. Because I can show this to let's say the people at the school of my kids, or the man in the street, but he'll be freaking out and he wants to lock me up when he sees what I'm creating.
Oh yeah, yeah. When you show the art to people that don't do art, especially
Yeah.
creators and stuff like that, they freak out a little bit. They do freak out, like, what's wrong with this guy designing? But then you have artists that appreciate you. They're like, oh my god, this is cool. Or artistic people that like art and design. Yeah, it's completely true. Completely very nice said. I like that how you presented it because I never understood people who didn't like social media or stuff like that
Hmm.
because I always had a different opinion about it. As I told you, I live in a bunker,
Yeah,
A-
yeah,
and very different. I mean, okay, you shouldn't clinch to the likes and stuff like that, but they also give you the input about your work. Is it good? Is it appealing to the public? At the end of the day, you're designing for the public, not for yourself to hide in the basement.
yeah.
And it has to find the public. I like also that sentence very much that you said your work needs to find the public and the public needs to find it, and that's completely true. I completely agree. But I would like to talk about you about the stuff that you do now, and if you could show us a little bit of your work, that amazing work I see on your screen, and if we could talk about how do you start, how do you sculpt in ZBrush, and of course about the 3D prints that are being present.
Yeah. So to start off roughly, like certain people say that I have a style or a certain style. What I figured out by backtracking everything, like my style didn't happen until 4 years ago. Like when I scroll down in my portfolio, like there's a lot of yeah, creature and dark stuff, but it's more general. And since the past 4 years, since this period, like certain flows started happening in my work. Like I choose certain colors in my color palette, like the reds, the blacks, the golds, and everything, and also the spirals and the kanjis. And I was inspired by other cultures because for me it's always very important as an artist to be inspired by things that you see. Like when I want to create concept art, like I will never go out and Google concept art. I will look at stuff in the real world that to trigger certain things in me. And on my workflow, like I don't sketch anything out on 2D. Like I figure out a concept or something that I want to make in my head. Look up some reference images that
Hmm.
might trigger some impulses in me, and then I jump into ZBrush and start sculpting digitally directly.
I
Um,
see. I see. And immediately a question for you.
yeah.
How do you don't get lost in 3D? Because I have a problem, me as me, that I
Hmm.
get lost if I'm too much in 3D, especially in ZBrush. I get lost. And I don't know what I'm doing after some time. How do you maintain the consistency to keep on working on the project or design and that you don't lose it?
Well, for me, like when I even before I even open ZBrush, I and I'm talking about personal work, right? Client work is a total different discussion. But when I'm talking about personal work, um, I figured out a concept in my head, and it's clearly like uh, the concept is there for let's say 70%. Like I want to create this, and the other 30% are lucky accidents while I'm discovering shapes and playing around with things. So that's for me the most important thing. Like when I jump into the program, I already know what I want to create, and so I don't get lost. And also my projects, like all of the personal work that you see in my portfolio, or practically everything, is done within a day or 2 days or something, like from start to finish.
That's impressive. That's very impressive. Yeah, we talked about that on the Playgrounds Berlin, where I finally met you after all these years. And we talked about, you said I did this dragon in 2 days, and I just looked at you with disbelief. How could you do something that detailed and that cool in that short amount of time? Like, yeah,
This guy, 6 hours was this guy.
yeah, that's insane, man. That's insane. I am fast, but I'm not that fast. I'm
But
not that.
yeah, but the thing is, like, when I started working on this piece, I already knew, okay, I want to create a dragon, I want to create a bust. I had certain influences. I want to create something with two horns, and I just jump in. And for me, also, when I'm sculpting, within 2 hours or between 20 minutes and 2 hours, my sculpture is done. And what I mean is, like, the blockout is done, the shapes are there, and the only thing that I need to do for the rest of those 8 hours or 2 days or 3 days, depending on how long I want to work on a piece, but that's just drawing between the lines, connecting dots, because everything's set there. From that point on, I start detailing, refining, polishing shapes, but everything is set within a very short amount of time. Like, it's the same thing when you take a piece of paper and you would sketch out. Let's say when you do a live drawing, like you just do the blocking, you do the big points, the big shapes, the big lines, and after that you start refining certain shapes, start modifying certain things, but everything will be done within a short amount of time. And that's generally, like, let's say, how I tend to work. And also, like, when I want to create something, I want to get it out of my system. Like, I have an idea, I create it, and I want to knock it out within a day or 2 days, because when I be working on it too long, I get bored, because that's the only downside. Because the way how I am as, let's say, an artist or a person is, like, I get bored pretty quick sculpting or designing something. And when I have a client and he says to me, like, oh, I have a project and it will take on for 6 weeks or 3 months or something, like working on one piece, like within 5 days I'll be crying in a corner, like, please let this thing stop, like, it's already done for me.
It
But the only thing,
it turned from a Mogwai to Gremlin in that
yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
absolutely understand.
yeah, but the thing is, like, your story, or let's say your story as an artist, is told within a few days. And then, let's say, the art director or the client, then they start refining shapes, tweaking shapes, and in the end, like, to your client, like, the difference aren't, let's say, life changing. Like, there's some good tweaks, some poses, but yeah, it's a lot of back and forth. And that's also something that I personally hate when you're doing freelance work, and you're, let's say, you're sitting at home, you send out an email or some images, and you have to wait for feedback, like downtime. And most of the times, those things that you see on my screen now, those are all done in, let's say, downtime when I'm waiting for feedback. So that's also why they're short projects.
So you trained yourself, you optimized your work so you can work on your personal projects in the meantime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of people always ask me, like, how come that you've become a fast sculptor or a fast designer? And I tell them, like, there was a certain moment in my life when I got kids, and being creative and having kids isn't always, let's say, a win-win option, because creativity doesn't come out of the air all the time, or sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. But what I've learned is, like, when I know that my time slots during the day is so limited, that I have to maximize everything. So when I have a day and I don't have a job, I know, like, when I drop off my kids at school, I have until 4:30, 5 o'clock in the evening, and I have to pick them up again. And between that time slot, like, I have to do something.
Yeah.
And also, like, I sculpt every day, like, or practically every day. So you don't need warming up things, or you don't have to think on the technical side, because a lot of people in ZBrush are always struggling with the interface, like when they're beginning. But if you do it on a daily basis, like it feels like second nature, and that's, let's say, the fun on sculpting and everything.
Yeah, when we were in Berlin playgrounds, and I started to work on the vacuum, and I didn't
Yeah.
have my preferences for ZBrush, and you were looking at me, and you were like, "Can you even sculpt? Can you even sculpt dark?" And I was like, "I don't think I can." And what I thought at that moment was how intuitive the ZBrush was for me, that I literally don't know, if you ask me which is which command, that it's so intuitive that I'm so used to it that I'm just processing it in the back of my head. So I'm not thinking I'm gonna use Ctrl B or stuff like that. I'm just using it. And it's crazy how intuitive the artist becomes the more he does the work, as you said. And that's completely true, and I completely agree on that, because being a good artist, you need to have that processes in the back of your mind, but not in the front where they will occupy you and not let you design the stuff. So yeah, completely agree on that. So tell me about this guy. Tell me about Cthulhu Idol.
This little Cthulhu idol, well, it's yeah, like I've done a few Cthulhu pieces in
He
the
looks
past,
like me
and
on the meeting. When I'm on a meeting, he literally looks like me. I sit like that mostly.
or I was thinking that it was you, like sitting on the toilet or something, but
Where that's too
I'm
expensive.
not sure where you have your meetings, of course.
In the toilet, of course, man. Okay, okay.
No, but okay. This guy was inspired by let's say the classic Cthulhu mythos done by H.P. Lovecraft, and it's fun to work with, you know. But the thing is also, like, what a lot of people mentioned or talked about during when I presented this thing is like, oh, but it has a Gigeresque feel to it, and I was like, I'm not going for that look and feel, but somehow. Because I was growing up, I saw the books, I was inspired, and I think it's with a lot of artists, like when you see certain things when you grow up, like those things are always stuck in the back of your head, and they will come out in some form or another. But in this case, like, okay, it's a Cthulhu thing, it's an alien thing, it is biomechanical. So yeah, but yeah, this guy was like, I did. Let's skip to this guy. Like, I did this guy first. Oh, this lovely lady. Let's do it professional. Okay, so this guy I sculpted first, and I was thinking like, oh, I want to do a totem, like just the head of Cthulhu-like creature, and then like a week later or something, I was like, okay, let's do a project, like fix something, and like these projects, I try to do within 24 hours.
Whoa.
So within, yeah, but what I say within 24 hours is like, it's not like if I miss the 24 hours, so be it. Like, it doesn't matter, right?
Mm.
But I put myself into, let's say, a corner, and I tell to myself like, okay, I would sit behind my computer, start from scratch, and within 24 hours, I want to hold something in my hand physically.
Yeah.
So sculpting something, I put it on the print bed, I set it up, print it, and be able to take a picture within 24 hours just to get an idea that's in my head, physically in my hand, and not purely on a screen. But it's challenging, but it's also fun to do. And the thing is, like, you don't lose much time on it, because, like I said, you try to do it within 24 hours. And it's all about having fun. Like, for me, personal art is having fun, and being able to work in your comfort zone, but also challenge yourself sometimes, to keep your work kind of fresh, because, like, it happens when you work and you do a lot of stuff that after a while you look at your portfolio and you're like, okay, so I've done so many things. What else do I need to add? But that's actually a wrong way of thinking when you look at your portfolio, because most of the things that you created, you did when you were having fun. So I think the most important thing is just to find something to have fun again with,
Yeah.
when you create things.
True story. True story. Speaking about 3D print and 24 hours that you did it, what I'm wondering is, Do you think that improved your artwork quite a lot? Because from my experience, the artists have two problems in the beginning and in the middle of their career, and the end. All the time we have two problems. One is, when do we work fast? When do we work slow? So when I'm designing something, I always have a pattern, like I'm switching one side of the brain, turning off the other one, and
Hmm.
that's making a big shapes, making an interesting sculpt, putting the motion on it, and then when do I turn on the other side where you start to polish it? How do you think about that? Because you're doing that everything in 24 hours plus the print. How do you optimize that workflow for you?
Well, it's a good question. I really don't know. Like now, the thing is, like you jump in, you jump in eagerly, and you're like, yeah, okay, let's do this. And then after 3 hours, you're like, damn, this isn't going in the direction that I'm going. But what I've learned over the years is like, in every piece that you create, like there's a certain moment that you don't see it anymore, and you're lost. And then you just have to trust, let's say, your skill set or what you've been doing for so many years, and persevere. Like keep ramping up, adding details. But that's also why I'm telling you, like, or said in the beginning, that for me the first between the 20 minutes and 2 hours are super important. Like if I'm not feeling it within 2 hours, I destroy my work. Like I destroy my work all the time and start all over again. um, like like when I'm, let's say, doubting after 2 hours, and by the end of the evening I have a finished piece, like rendered in Keyshot, everything, and I still have a feeling like, this isn't it, I just trash it. I throw it into my recycle bin and I delete it. Like I don't have any let's say, works in progress on my hard drive. Like I'm very let's say, terminating or aggressive on my works.
I
Like,
see.
but I don't care about them. But okay, that might be a wrong choice of words. But um, I make them, I send them into the world. I approve them, because if I haven't approved them, I wouldn't show them to the rest of the world, you know. And from then on, it's like it's their journey. And if somebody says like I like it, I don't like it, um, it's up to somebody else. But I'm never coming back to a model like when I finish something off and somebody says, oh, maybe you can tweak this or this, and I'm like, no, it's done, it's finished. I start over with something new. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a discussion. If we start talking about this, it will be a whole stream discussion, because I know when people start posting on my Instagram questioning stuff that are sometimes not even relevant, but then you start thinking about them, and you are like, I remember one of the last comments was that engine for a giant would be too big, and it's a discussion, man. It's a
mhm.
discussion. But as you said, sometimes you need to just stop and tell to yourself, okay, let's just stop with this for now, because the piece is done. I want to do the next one. So I completely agree on that.
Yeah, and in my eyes, like a lot of young people, or let's say students, are too precious about their work. Like if like in my eyes, quite often they work way too long on one piece. Like they put in way too much time if you compare it with the result that they're getting. But they're learning, right? But the moment when somebody, let's say, kicks their little baby that they've created, like they start freaking out like crazy and kicking around, and like that's something that you have to, let's say, mature in as an artist. Like you don't have to defend your work. In my eyes, like your work will defend itself. You know.
Yeah, true, true. The work, the artwork is 1,000 words and more.
Yeah.
When you show it, you get all the answers. What I'm wondering now is, can we see a bit of the process how you do this kind of stuff, or you explain us as we look at through one of the works?
Yeah, I have a recording of that dragon that you were
Yes,
talking about. I have a
please.
recording of it. It's a long recording. Like it's yeah. In total, it was 6 hours. It's been cut down to an hour and a half now.
Mm,
But the thing is, like, what you will see, like, I will skip through it and talk about it a tiny bit so you have an idea. But how I start sculpting, like, I always start from spheres.
okay.
And as you can see, I modify my brushes very easily. As you can see also, I use the standard interface, nothing custom.
I'm still shocked about that, to be honest. Very shocked.
Well, I don't have any problems with it, and I know where everything's at in the program. And to be honest, like when you're sculpting, like even though they're like I've installed 1,000 brushes, you only use a tree or something, you know. Um,
Yeah, you have quite a lot of brushes, as I can see on the videos. Like
but
really.
yeah, but the thing is, like that's also when I teach or something, and my students see my interface. Like, oh, you have so many brushes. Can I have them? I'm like, sure, but you only will need three or something, you know, three or four, and the rest is just modifications to do certain bits and points to like their specialized brushes.
Mm.
Um, when I'm sculpting, like as you can see, I use move quite a lot, clay buildup, and the standard brush. Like I do practically everything with the standard brush and with alpha 38 turn on to do, let's say, all the lines and everything. Um,
I see. The move tool is very important in ZBrush. Many people don't realize that, but can you tell about it a little bit so I don't talk, because I also think that the move tool is super important.
Well, the move tool is like you can tweak shapes instantly and do big iterations and changes and in comparison with like you can use a sculpt brush, of course, but it will take up so much time if you just want to modify a certain bit. And that's also something when I'm teaching like students, like I'm telling them, no, like for instance, like in my eyes, one of the biggest mistakes that people do when they're sculpting digitally is using a clay buildup and using a really small alpha. And I'm telling them like, no, like if you want to add details, use a standard brush. Don't use the clay buildup. Like clay buildup is to build up your shapes.
Mm.
It's not to refine and make little details and everything. And like yeah, you have to compare it with real world sculpting. I always try to explain to people like you have certain tools for big shapes, big modifications like the move and clay build-up stuff, and then you start refining everything with a standard and a dam standard if necessary, and yeah, all the things like stenciling alphas and everything is later on in the process, of course.
Yeah. Alphas are quite powerful weapon in the ZBrush, in any 3D software actually now, but in ZBrush especially, like alphas are the main thing for me now. I'm developing some workflows in my head also with them, so I'm happy that you're talking about that and the clay buildup and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the thing like with alphas is like something that also a lot of people are like when I'm sculpting, like I try to keep my sculpt as low as possible as for the longest time in poly count. Like I don't want to go into 1 million or 4 million polygons and start sculpting on it. No, I want to have simple shapes to start working with. And once I'm happy with those shapes, I start modifying everything. And then you start applying all those alphas because a lot of people when they dive into ZBrush the first time, they were, I can make details, I can make wrinkles, and they start like refining everything. And then when you, let's say, when you're teaching or helping people, you have to point to them like, no, like, please adjust all your shapes first and then start refining everything in details. Like it's the same thing like drawing or painting. Like you just make sure that everything's in there, is blocked out, and then you start playing around with everything.
Mm.
So.
Mm. Yeah, sometimes when I see work on ArtStation, I see that there was so much time invested in it, but then I look at it and there is so much details that my eyes start to hurt. My eyes literally start to hurt from it, and I'm like, with a little bit tweaks, this can be amazing, but unfortunately, it will take some time. So yeah, I completely agree. Look how cool it is already on 6 minutes. Already you have a basic sculpt of the head, and you can present it to a client.
Yeah, so this will be done. This is speeded up by 4 minutes. So this will be done in 20 minutes. So you can send off something in 20 minutes to the client and start working with it. When I'm sculpting, I also use Sculptors Pro. Do you use
Mm.
it?
Yeah, I've been using it the last 6 months quite a lot, and Chaos Masons. I have to mention them. The snake hook brush. You know, the
Yeah.
one that they invented, and it's freaking awesome to design stuff like that. I love it. I don't know why I didn't start doing it earlier, but I wish I did. But now when I look, it's one of the most amazing things I saw. It's like 3D code literally.
Yeah,
And
it's great to work with.
how
And
do you
also
implement it in your workflow?
Well, I use it to block in the shapes, but also to keep everything dynamic. And if I want to, let's say, like the great thing on working with sculptures is it's like you don't have to work with subdivisions to add little details and everything, right?
Mm.
So you can refine, let's say, the shapes of the eyes, but then you can start polishing bigger shapes, and it's all on the fly. And later on, like all the technical stuff will happen. You do the Z-remesh or you do the Dynamesh or whatever's necessary to make it work. But when you're designing, like it's such a powerful tool. Like I would say 5 years ago, the most powerful thing ZBrush had was Dynamesh when they introduced it, right? But for now, when you're a designer, I would say sculptures, definitely.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, Dynamesh, now I can't imagine my life without it. Like, you know, those small stuff that come out from time to time that change your life completely.
Yeah.
ZBrush is well known for that, yeah. By the way, speaking of that, of the ZBrush and stuff like that, you participated on the ZBrush Sculpt Off, and now I understand why you won, because man, you're fast and you do high quality in very short amount of time. So yeah, impressive stuff, man. Impressive stuff.
Yeah, and for me, let's say, let's go a bit further into the process, but it's just blocking in shapes, and I'm switching out between two, three brushes, that's all.
Mm.
And like, if you would see the recording, because I showed the full recording to a few students last week, they were like saying like, but every stroke that you make is perfect. Like you don't go back over it and you start modifying it. And they asked me like, yeah, how does this happen? And I was like, I don't know. Like,
I don't know. I'm just born like that.
yeah, like I don't know. I just sculpt. I just do things, and oh, I just there was a little thing that I also do when I'm sculpting, and a lot of people don't use it. Wait, let's go back because I saw it popping up. Come on, to the edge. Do you use inflate while sculpting?
Yes, quite a lot. Quite a lot, to be
Because
honest.
because a lot of people don't know it, but that's a little trade secret that I learned over the years when I was sculpting, like using the inflate brush on a very high setting
Mm.
and very small drawing size, just to get little edges and everything to make sure that certain details pop. And especially when you go in the direction of 3D printing, like you have to make sure that all those edges are, let's say, nice, sharp, and crisp, and laying on top. Then the whole thing with the inflate brush is great to work with, of course.
I completely agree. Also, a lot of people, which is fascinating to me, don't use pinch brush that much.
Oh yeah,
And it's really strange, man, isn't it? Do you use pinch?
I use pinch, but I use pinch on the inside of my models.
On the inside.
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because you can pinch even better.
Okay,
No, no.
okay.
The thing is like I sculpt some of my models when I need to refine certain shapes. I sculpt from the inside.
Hmm.
And let's say for the pinch brush, like when you use pinch on first you make a crease, right, into your sculpt, and when you use pinch, like you pinch the crease, but you also pinch the edges around it a tiny bit,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And if you work on the inside of your model, you're just modifying the edge that goes to the inside, and you don't have any influence on the sides that go up. So you're then, let's say, making the pinch even sharper purely on the edge that you want to create.
Hmm. That's some really good advice there. Thank you for that, because it's a great advice for everybody who's watching. Yeah, it's like a double crease, literally double crease that you make.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things about ZBrush that I'm always thinking about is how do we make it more clean, you know? When especially hard surface stuff. Hard surface stuff can be messy, man. And I'm always thinking how we can improve it, you know? That's always my question.
Yeah, my approach during hard surface is okay. When you look at my portfolio, hard surface isn't my real thing, but I like to dabble with it. I like to
Mm.
play with it. But what I've learned over the years is like the best way how to approach hard surface in ZBrush, and the Chaos Mason guys will practically, I think, say the same thing, is you approach it organically. So you approach it organically, and later on you start polishing like a crazy man and start polishing all those shapes, make them sharp, make them flat, split up surfaces. But while you're designing, approach it organically, sculpt with it, use the age polish things, the clipping brushes, but don't start, let's say, approaching it as a box modeling tool. but more as a block of clay that you start playing with,
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree on that. Yeah, smart people as you, smart people as you. I should bring them also on the stream to talk about ZBrush, maybe in the next episodes. But you said you use inflate brush. What I want to
Yeah,
talk with you about is, so you said it's beneficial for the 3D prints.
yeah.
What are the most beneficial things for you when it comes to 3D prints in this fast pace?
So the most beneficial thing for 3D printing is, and it's also the same for rendering and keyshot, because for me those two things are the same. Like keyshot, you rendered in keyshot, right?
Yeah.
Keyshot is unforgiving for your models. Like if your model isn't looking good, it looks like shit in keyshot, right? Uh,
I know.
but also what I've learned when you do organic stuff and you would render it in keyshot, like if you make sure that all the details are extra crisp and let's say popping that tiny bit more, it will catch the lights even better, like certain edges, certain wrinkles, certain details. And if you apply that workflow on your 3D prints, then your prints will also be better, of course. One of the, let's say, traits secrets that I use is first make sure that your model is pretty sharp and clean when you're done sculpting it before sending it off to print. But you have this plugin, it's called Ryan's Tools. It's from Ryan Kittleson. Um, not sure, have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I heard about him, but I didn't use the tools.
Well, he has got this tool, and it's actually a plugin, and it's a script, and it's called Amp Detail. And what
Okay.
it does is like it amplifies your sculpted detail. But you have to be very careful with it because it kind of works like an inflate in two directions. So let's say something that goes in will be pushed in, something that goes up in the normals, in vertice, will be pushed out, right? But if you go too hard over it, like it will destroy everything because it will push in your wrinkles deeper and amplify the skin in between the wrinkles, so it makes it thicker. But if you go too hard over it, like and you want to print it, let's say certain vertices will collapse and will give errors during print. So you have to fix those things.
So it improves really the prints. You want to tell me that it can
Yeah,
improve? Yeah. So
it,
Martin,
impro- it,
why
it
you didn't
improves
tell
your
me?
final model.
Why you didn't tell me that 5 months ago when I started printing, please?
Yeah, but you're printing hard surface stuff. It isn't working on hard surface stuff
I know. I
because
agree. Agree.
it inflates. So it works, let's say, like a big balloon. And that's also when you have to be careful, like when you, let's say, are happy with your model and you go over the whole thing too hard, like it starts amping up certain areas, pumping up certain spaces, and yeah, then you're not happy with it anymore. But it's just a trick, it's the cherry on the cake. Like you have to make sure that everything is nice and crisp, and also you can also only do this before you do any engineering, before you do any cutting, keying, and those things, of course,
Yeah.
because you're modifying your model.
Mm. Yeah. I was just joking, but you're dropping some very important stuff on this stream, and I love it because that kind of stuff that you give, those are that small things, like a small detail that you said in Keyshot that makes the sculpt look even better.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for giving that kind of details because I know that the public will love that. I'm truly enjoying what I'm hearing.
Well, I'm just talking about my workflow, and the thing is, like, I'm working from home 99% of the time. So most of the times, like, let's say those little things, yeah, they're normal for me because I do them all the time. The good thing is, like, I have some friends online, other artists like you, that I can call up if I have certain problems, or if I want to know certain workflows. If you look at somebody's work and you're like, God damn it, I hate you. Why
Yeah.
do you make your work so good? You just give them a call and say, like, I hate you. Tell me your secrets now.
Yeah, we all artists I guess go through that, to the hate, and then we call and cry. That's how it goes.
Yeah, but it's like it's also that's something that I also tell people, like when you see work, like, are you amazed? And I'm like, no, I'm angry. I'm angry. I want to know why I'm attracted to it and why it's better than mine. And then you like start analyzing it. You start talking to the person, and most of the times it isn't let's say, little trade secrets or something that they apply. It's more, let's say, a workflow or a work ethic that they apply to their work, and you're like, okay, so I might try to also do this, because let's say working with spheres, like it's normal for a lot of people, but until 3 4 years ago, I always started with base meshes.
Mm.
I started with base meshes. I started modifying those things, and then I met James Kane at Summit.
Yeah.
He's a great sculptor, and he was talking to me, and he said, "Oh, but I do everything from spheres," and I was like, "Oh, damn, you should give that a try," because like, if you work with spheres or you work with base meshes, the output with spheres is, let's say, always more. It's more of an exploration that you can do with spheres
More
than with base.
personality. More
Yeah,
personality. Yeah.
yeah, more personality. And then I was like, okay, let's give this thing a shot. And then, of course, sculptors came out, and I thought like, okay, this is like the perfect match for me to make it work.
Mm.
And since that moment on, like, I threw around my workflow that I was applying for 6 7 years back then. I just kicked it out of the door and did something new with it, you know?
Adaptation, right? It's very
Yeah.
important for every artist.
Yeah, especially because you see other people's work and you start to wonder, like, how do they come to that result? Like, it can't be with a base mesh, and like, especially when you see certain sculptors that do collectibles, like some of them are super crazy in poses and everything, and I'm like thinking like they must have done that whole thing in pose from the beginning. Otherwise, you can't pull it off. Like, because you have to resculpt everything twice when it's like, let's say, in a dynamic pose and everything, and yeah, but yeah,
I I hate it, man. I hate posing. It destroys every sculpt of mine. Like I hate it from my bottom, almost as UVs, almost as UVs, man. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
well, the thing with, let's say, most of my personal work, it's pretty it's not very dynamic,
Mm.
but somehow, let's say, the creatures or the things that I create can be pulled off without dynamic poses, because they're, let's say, more a presence. They're standing there, like
Yeah.
they're just in their surroundings, instead of, let's say, running around on all fours and doing something crazy. But yeah, posing is a
Pain in the ass.
yeah, it's a pain in the ass. How do you do? Do you use a gizmo, or do you use the transpose lines?
Oh, well, I don't do it just anymore. I just post my work as a T pose. Yeah, I do it. I did it in Maya because there was a quick rig, and I immediately get a quick read. But then I was like, I have some Macs that have 6 legs and stuff like that, and I was like, how am I
Yeah.
gonna do this? So the gizmo in ZBrush was the best solution for that. But it's such an uncreative process, and it takes you days. Literally, for me, it takes days. Maybe I'm not skilled, but it's hard, man. It's hard.
It takes it takes up a lot of time posing, because it's hard to find the right pose, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I also learned over the years is, like, when I'm posing up something, like, you go to transpose master, right? You go into T-pose mesh, and you have to save out those things quite often. Like don't go into transpose master, start posing that thing for 3 4 hours, and then push that button again, because if you push that button again, like, I had so many errors popping up,
Yeah.
like vertices were wrong or something, and it's like it's like, yeah, okay, so you have this nice sweet pose, you worked on it super long, and like, there's no shortcut getting that pose again,
Yeah.
so you have to do it again.
I can
Yeah.
imagine that frustration. Like I can only imagine. And sometimes it's crazy, man, because sometimes you do it and you finish it, and okay, the file crashes, and you're like, I'm gonna do it again. It wasn't a problem. I didn't do it for long, and then you realize that you're doing it, but you're not doing it the same, and you can't do it. So that's one of the tricks of the life, I guess. So yeah, hard. It can be hard. It can be hard. And you always sculpt in this material.
Most of the times, those are the ZBro materials. I prefer to work with these type of materials because they're, let's say, kind on the eye.
Mm.
What I've learned over the years, like, Okay, do you like the red madcap?
I don't think anybody likes red madcap.
Well, it
No.
it's very fun. Like when you get, let's say, 20 sculptors in a bar. It doesn't
Okay.
happen quite often, but when you get 20 sculptors in the bar and you start talking about a topic, like it will be divided 50-50. Seriously.
Really? I thought
Yeah.
nobody likes that. I thought nobody likes it. I like.
Yeah,
I can see the
I
detail, man. I can see the detail when I'm sculpting in it.
yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I don't like working with it. Like, I prefer these type of shaders to sculpt with it. But if I want to do, let's say, the double or the final check before I send it off to print, I might preview the whole thing in the red wax material, because if stuff looks good in that material, your sculpt is solid.
Nothing looks good in that material.
No, 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 no. If
N-
your sculpt is good to go and you're sure about it, you have a look at it in red wax. If it doesn't look good in red wax, something's still wrong.
Not even my 3D head print works in that material, man. Trust me. Trust me. Yeah, okay, but yeah, that's a smart move. I never thought about it, but yeah, there is a big logic behind that. There is a
But it's
logic.
just as a double check, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't suggest or tell people like, yeah, I should start sculpting in it. But like last week, I was teaching in a classroom, and for at least 2 days, like, students were sculpting with red wax, and I was like, dudes, guys, come on, girls, please. Like, I brought along some materials. Please install them. Try something else. My
Throw.
eyes hurt.
Yeah, 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 the pain. Yeah, you're teaching a lot. We talked about that on Playgrounds Berlin, and you go to different countries to teach people. What is for you the biggest problem that people have when they are starting out and to learn from you? What is the thing that you always observe that happens?
That I don't want to listen.
Okay, okay.
No, 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 no.
Honest,
But it's,
honest answer. Honest answer. I like
no,
that.
no. The thing that I've seen over the years is that, like, the only thing that I can teach people is how I approach things, right?
Yeah.
But quite often, like, when I teach them, like, they had an introduction of ZBrush in the previous year or something, and it isn't done by somebody who sculpts on a daily basis. So it's done by just a teacher that works in the school, right?
Mm.
And if you don't get your basics right, like how to build up shapes and forms, um, it takes quite some time for people to adapt to it again, because they have to, let's say, retweak their workflow, and they have to start from scratch. And every time, like when I'm walking around, because when I teach, I give, let's say, when I teach at 15 people or something, right? I give them a small introduction to all of them, and then I just walk around for the whole day. Like,
Mm.
I give them an assignment, but I walk around, look over their shoulders, because every student has their own skill set or their own knowledge about ZBrush, and I just adapt to what they want to learn. Because for me, it's very important when you teach something that's, let's say, creative. Quite often, the skill levels are very different in the classroom, and if you just run and have fun with, let's say, the best students, like the other ones will drop out.
Mm.
And yeah, to answer your question, like, the thing that I've always noticed, like, the beginner mistakes are using the wrong brushes or the wrong tools to start sculpting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. That's fair enough. But it's strange, right? Isn't it? After all, you have all the on the internet, you can check it all the time. It's strange that people are having that kind of mistakes, you know. But again, they are beginners, right?
Yeah, and like, when I'm teaching, most of the time those people are between 18 and 22 years or something,
Yeah.
and like, and then you ask them, like, how long have you been sculpting? And they're like, oh, I've been sculpting for 4 years. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, how long have you been sculpting? I ask it again, and I'm like, just like, it takes time to get the skill sets under your belt, like how to work with shapes, how to look at shapes,
Yeah.
and like, I started sculpting when I was 30.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't touched any ZBrush before I was 30, and now I'm teaching kids that are 22, and they've been sculpting for 4 years, and it's like, it's crazy.
It's crazy how early the people are starting now.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as we talked in the beginning of the stream, like we didn't have that much info before, you know. There was no info. You know Gnomon, and that's it pretty much. Now all around there is info, but there is again problem about that. I tell that on every stream. the people are too fast and the quality of design is falling because of that. It's falling because they want immediately to paint as some of the best artists, to draw as some of the best artists, to design as some of the best, and they don't invest time in the fundamentals.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest mistakes. Like when I'm teaching, most of the times it's at visual effects schools, and like I start talking to those guys about anatomy, animal anatomy, and I'm not going in depth, you know. I'm just talking about basics, like where certain muscle groups go and everything, and they don't have a clue. They don't have a clue because they're so young, and they jumped into visual effects when they were 18. Like they start studying it, and it's cool. It's nice that you can do that, certain things, but the problem is, like, if you don't have your fundamentals artistically, on composition, on color, on anything of those things, like, it will still be a long struggle before you will be able to create your own work, you know.
Who are the most successful students in your classes? Who are the ones that you see always evolve the fastest? The ones that listen.
Yeah, the ones that listen, but also the people actually that I wouldn't say are the most gifted sculptors, but they are having the most fun of it in it. And that's something that I noticed. Like, even when somebody's, let's say, struggling with the program, but they're having fun, like in the end when they have a little presentation, like, they might not show the best model of the whole classroom, you know, but I see their work, and I'm like, what you have learned in only a few days is way more than the guy that made the best troll or creature or dragon that he sculpted, because he already knew the program. He was just not listening for 3-4 days and doing his own thing. But I rather enjoy seeing, let's say, the progress that people make that are purely having fun and are listening, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you. Because when you start teaching, you start seeing that kind of stuff. How much people don't want to listen, don't want to know anything. They know it all. It's crazy, because maybe we didn't have that kind of personalities, but there is a lot of people, especially the new generations. Like, I don't know, it started happening that they don't want to hear anything you tell them. Like, half of the time they listen to you, half of the other time they don't listen, but they are the ones also that ask the most questions. You know, it's some of the life paradoxes, literally. And from my experience that I had, was that the ones that become the most successful in art are the ones that don't only want to learn art, but
Yeah, true.
they think about other stuff, and they learn different stuff, like not just drawing, not just stuff, but how things work, how they function. As you said, anatomy is not art. I mean, it's a part of art, but many artists
Yeah.
forget about it completely, and they're like, I want to sketch something cool, and that's it pretty much. Yeah, I agree on this completely. Thank you for pointing out that.
Yeah, but it's so important. Like, the best artists in the world are the artists that, in my eyes, always have the biggest, let's say, mental luggage with them, and visual libraries of things they've seen in the world, and they have looked at things. Like, that's also one of the first things that I try to teach people, is like, learn to see, and understand the topic that you want to create, even if it's like a fancy thing. Like, try to understand why it moves like that, try to understand how it lives, try to yeah, make it work, make it feasible. If it would be living, like, even if it's a fancy thing, like, if it would be living in this world, like, how it would breathe and reproduce and everything, you know. Like, don't design an elephant with mice legs or something stupid, you know.
I designed the dwarf elephant. What are you talking about? Oh my god, you destroyed my concept from Inside 44. No, Tiny is dead. I'm removing him from the book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's of course a big exaggeration on the whole thing. But yeah, sometimes you have to explain things in, let's say, a dumb language for people to understand what everything's going about. It's the same thing with working for clients, and they want to talk about budgets and everything. Like, I always make those discussions so.
Something happened, I think. Just give, yeah, reconnection successful. We are back.
Okay.
So let me just check so we are sure, and then I will fix everything in the live. So yeah, we were talking about day rates and stuff like that, and I want to continue there. Let me check
Yeah.
it. Let me check what's happening. I know it returns always. Let me check OBS. So can you share your screen just?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. I apologize for this. It happens. Okay, we are back. We are back, guys. I apologize. I will clean that part of the video. But yeah. So we were talking about the day rates, and we talked already about that in Berlin, you know.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating also to me that people are hiding all the time. I mean, you don't have to say the exact day rate and stuff like that, but that needs to be discussed, because if something is not discussed, it's like a marriage, literally. If you're not discussing with your partner, you will never you'll never find what the problem is. And we are always talking how the day rates are the problem in the industry and how people are
Hmm.
not charging enough, but we are never talking about them. So how do we fix that, you know? And it's very strange stuff for me. It's very strange stuff for me because I like to be open very about it.
Well, in my case, like I'm always pretty open about it, and especially when you come together with professional sculptors, like people that do it
Yeah.
daily and make their income out of it. Like, um, I think it's important to and also, okay, one big thing: day rates in Europe and day rates in the States are completely different. You know?
That's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I wanted to talk about. We talked about that, and
Yeah.
it's fascinating how much bigger day rates are in USA than in Europe.
Yeah, so in Europe, and I'll be pretty blunt with it. Like in Europe, when you're an experienced 3D artist, your day rate will be between, let's say, 350 and 500 euros.
Yeah, yeah,
It's somewhere in between, and it depends like on your skill set, what people want to pay for you, the project, how long it will go on. If you go to the States, those day rates will be pumped up sometimes until $1,000 a day
I
and
know.
things like that.
I
Yeah.
know. It's same as positions like art director and stuff like that. There are some people that earn like insane amount, like 30,000 a month in Europe.
Yeah.
5 to 6 max. 5 to 6 max if you get. Like, of course, there are some artists that earn more, but we are talking about average. And that's insane how much different. The USA was always much more open to art and new stuff, plus a lot of industries there. So I understand it completely why it's happening like that.
Yeah, and it's important, like especially let's say the ZBrush Summit is a great platform. Like when you're there, they're purely ZBrush sculptors there, right? So purely people that sculpt on a daily basis. And when you discuss day rates, like you realize like if you charge not enough or too much. And the thing is like undercharging destroys the whole industry, because like there are always some people in let's say poorer countries
That's what
that
we
will
mean. That's what we
yeah
mean. I'm raising
no
the
no
hand.
but yeah, there are even more poor countries than
I don't think so.
well, but the thing is like you're not talking about talent. Like if you would be living in India, like
Yeah, I know.
and if you would be living in India and you would get a day rate of let's say 150 euros, you would be living like a king, you know? Living for the rest in Europe and making 150 a day, yeah, you could. It's better to go to let's say the supermarket and start filling up shelves because you will get more money.
I know because I talked with some Indian people. You know, I went to India and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And art there is. I think that the cleaning lady gets more than artists sometimes. And I'm not
Yeah.
joking when I say that. And I met a guy that he was medium knowledge and stuff like that when it comes to 3D, medium quality. But he was earning a year $800.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of artists push the story how you should be earning more and stuff like that, but I think it can be very counterproductive, because if I come and say to Indian artist that is earning 100, it's less actually than $170 a month, he can
Yeah.
fall in depression because he will think, oh my god, I'm not doing anything right. And it's a market thing. It's a market thing. He can't avoid it. The only way he can fix it is to get out of there.
Yeah, true. And also being, let's say, when you're open about rates with other artists in the world, you have an idea what goes around into the industry, And what I've learned in the past 7 years, like by talking to a lot of other 3D sculptors, is you get an idea what industry rates are, because like just imagine you're starting out your career. There's a big studio or a big company that approaches you, and they give you, let's say, in your eyes, a big paycheck.
Mm.
And most of the times, like if you don't know what the industry rates are,
Yeah, yeah.
you find out a year later that they've underpaid you tremendously, and you've run the extra mile to give them the good work, you know?
But
Like,
I think that happens to a lot of people.
yeah, true, but if you don't talk to other artists openly about those rates, right? You don't have any idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
And also very important to know, like every industry applies different rates. Like if you would be a concept artist, even talking about being a digital sculptor, you know, like
I
if
know.
you're a concept artist, if you work for toys, if you work for collectibles, if you
Or
work
for
for high end
movies,
stuff,
for
for
games.
movies, games, like all those things have different rates.
True story. Completely true story. Completely true. And as I said, it's like a marriage. If you're not talking about it, how can you have a high quality marriage? So
Yeah,
yeah.
and in my eyes, like when I work for clients, like I want also to keep the discussion pretty open and fair, and it's like a marriage. You give them something and you want something in return, and it can't come from one direction the whole time.
Yeah, it's true. The business needs to be open,
Yeah.
transparent. So you see everything. If you're not seeing everything, move away from that business. That's one of my biggest problems I had during my career and growing. I was always thinking if I'm doing something wrong, and always didn't want to talk about some stuff, and they would use me. They would use me. You wouldn't believe how much. I should start posting some of that stuff again on my Facebook. You know that I like to write that stories, and because they're always very fun. Like guy crying that used me on the phone 3 years later.
Oh yeah. You told me this story.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
The guy calling me crying on the phone, like insanity. But yeah, but also the people shouldn't get discouraged if they get used, because it's part of the learning curve.
Yeah, of course.
Eventually you will get it, guys. I mean, it starts. Sometimes they trick you, they don't pay you. It will happen even when you get to a high level. And I spoke with many high level artists that
It
also.
happens. It happens to everybody once in a while that you get screwed over by a client that doesn't want to pay you, or payments are late, and yeah, that's part of the game. And it's not the fun part of the game, but it's part of the game. You know, being a freelance artist and getting screwed over left and right sometimes.
It can be painful when you're starting out and you need the money and everything. It can be
Yeah.
painful, but you learn from it. Like you start learning law, you start learning economics, you start learning
Yes,
how to
completely.
talk with a client. It's all in the name of learning.
Yeah,
And
because when you start out, you only want to create art, right?
yeah,
And then you figure out that you have to be a businessman also.
yeah, true. That's that. I think recently I will tell this story because recently I started hiring a ghostwriter for my Inside 44. So I need a person to fix my text and to make it sound cool, because it will sound like a caveman if I post my stuff. And I started hiring, and one of the things I worked before with the creatives and hired them, but I worked with people that I knew. And this was like I talked with 60 people from everywhere. They came, they wanted to work. And one of the things that literally stabbed my eyes was how insane and unprofessional they were. And I have a now huge respect to people that hire creatives that need to find a creative person,
Hmm.
because I saw how unprofessional people can act and how delusional they can be, literally. And I admire now a lot people who hire creative people, because many people say that they are unsuccessful, they want to be more successful, but there is always a reason behind it why. And in this case with some of these people was that they didn't care about the business side, literally didn't care about it, but they presented themselves as they were the best artists in the world.
Hmm.
And fun story, DarMar story for the stream, for the end of it. I had a girl and we talked, and she told me this sentence. Maybe it sounds that I'm a spoiled person, but I want to be an author or a co-author of your book, and you put your pretty pictures in it. And I was standing there for 5 minutes. I didn't understand what she said. I literally didn't understand. She offered me to be a co-author or author of the story that I invented, and that I pay her for a ghostwriting, and she puts her name on my book. So that kind of stuff happens, but it's a learning experience, and people need to be more professional in the work, especially artists. Artists have tendency not to be professional. So yeah.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. Is like if you follow, let's say, an art education or visual effects education, like that's the only, let's say, topic that you don't learn in school.
Yeah.
The business side of things.
The most important topic.
The most important things.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, because I studied animation once, and it was like, let's say, hand-drawn animation back in the day again.
In the 50s. Disney, okay.
Yeah, Disney style.
They just released the Snow White, okay.
Yeah, but they learned us everything about making an author film. Like you can produce a whole animation film on yourself, but when I graduated, I didn't even knew what a producer did,
Mm-hmm.
But they tell you how to mix your audio, to do the coloring, to do the editing, to do all the small little effects and those things. But if you walk into a professional conversation and somebody introduces himself like, "Hey, I'm the producer," you'll be like, "So what do you do?"
Yeah. So who are you?
So who are you? Are you my friend?
Do you sculpt? No, okay, never mind.
Okay, yeah. I don't care about you.
yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah. So Maarten, we have been talking for quite a while. You spent a lot of time today with me, and I want to thank you for coming. I truly enjoyed, same as in Berlin, and I wish to see you again somewhere. So I wanted to ask you, will you be the next year or this year on the events? Will you be going anywhere?
Not sure yet, because all the events are slowing down now. There might be a slight chance that I'll be going to IFCC, because I think it's a very fun and honest festival, and it also kind of depends. Like most of the times, festivals are a good place to connect to people, but like when you're invited as an artist, it's always a bonus.
Absolutely.
It's always a little bonus, and but I'm not sure yet, because normally this year I also will be trying to do Monsterpalooza again, with a few other artists, my grim buddies, James Kane and Brett Riley.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are little things that are on the horizon. But yeah, most of the things like festivals and everything, they cost money, they take up time, they take up professional time and personal time. So it's always figuring out, like, is it worth it in the end? Skipping certain things,
Yeah, true. I mean, for me, they're very fun. I like to visit them. I like to give
It's
lectures.
It's fun. It's super fun.
They do exhaust you. You come home and for 7 days you recover on the fusion set, like so from all the standing and the thinking and talking with so many people. But it's rewarding. Honestly, it is very rewarding. So we are wrapping up this. Dragon. It's like I chose the perfect moment when the dragon has finished.
The dragon is finished. What I also could show you is pretty quickly preform. It's open.
Let's do it.
Let's say this is your sculpt and you're happy about it. You can hollow it out and everything in Mesh Mixer. And then the most important thing that I could say, this is preform. It's the printing software from Formlabs. That's Form2 is the printer that I'm using at home. It's an high density SLA printer, so it's a resin printer. And the most important thing that I can advise people is learn to see how you orientate stuff on your print beds. Because when I set up this thing on a print bed, I orientated right in the correct angle that I want, so I don't see as much of the building lines, right? And I also go in by hand and modify my supports. So first I do an automatic placement of those supports that you see on the bottom in this case. And then I go in by hand and I modify certain points. And what you don't want is to have supports in your face or important parts, of course.
I see. Yeah, yeah. The hollow. I never worked in resin. I worked in PLA, but yeah, I see the hollowing is very important there. Very, very important.
The hollowing is very important. The wall thickness. You also have to make sure that you don't have any cups, otherwise you get a vacuum, and resin gets stuck into it. And I think this shell size, like the thickness of this wall, is 1.8 millimeter. But you can go down to 1.60 and will be perfectly fine.
How big is that print?
This print will be roughly. So it says time also. This guy will take 13 hours to print.
Right.
2,244 lines, 99 millimeters, milliliters. So it will take up, the cost of this thing will be roughly between 14 and 16 euros.
Okay.
Material cost.
Fair
So
enough.
that's practically for nothing, but it's an expensive printer, right? And this guy, the size from ear to ear is 14 centimeter, and the height is from this angle until this angle would be 17 centimeter, I think.
That's huge print. That is a huge print.
Yeah, when you hold it in your hand, it's practically like when you have a compact disc CD, right? And you would make a sphere out of that thing, that volume. That's how big this thing is.
I see.
It's big.
Very cool.
Yeah, and also the thing that I like to do with my stuff is, of course.
What is the red thing on his head? What is the red thing? Is he having a headache?
Oh yeah, well this is the program that
It
warns
looks like
you.
my headache when I'm 3D printing. Looks
Yeah.
like my headache. My left eye starts breaking and stuff. Okay.
Well, the thing is like this program also gives warnings. Like he says that he can't print this thing, and he says like you need to put extra supports, like little sticks on the inside,
Yeah.
so it won't collapse. But I just ignore this thing because
Okay.
I know this will print.
The
Because I've printed,
experience.
I printed so many times now. Like no, this will print. I'm not putting any extra supports because it's a extra material that will go into it, and eventually also a tiny bit more printing time.
Yeah.
And like this guy that just showed you on print bed, this is the final piece of that guy. So I printed it, hand painted it.
Yeah, it looks insane. What do you paint it with? Airbrush?
Yeah, airbrush and different washes. So I use modeling paints, acrylic modeling paints, and it's a trial and error, the whole thing, because I know my digital stuff. I know my pencils and my paints from the past, and now it's like stepping into a new thing because I was working digital for roughly 9 years or something. I haven't touched anything like brushes, and I was like, no, I want to paint this stuff. And then it's a journey. So all those little painted things, like this head, for instance, this guy, like these are experiments for me. It's trying to figure out certain paints. I have an airbrush kit at home, trying to learn how to work with that thing. And that's the great thing, like having those, let's say, small projects, 24-hour projects, let's call it like that. You try to get your print out, and then you start figuring out techniques how you can paint up everything and make things work. And what I've learned is like getting your stuff as digital sculptor in the physical world, it's a game changer. Like that's a big difference. Being able to hold things physically in front of people.
It opens new dimensions. Literally opens new dimensions.
Yeah, and also then you can clarify to a lot of people what you're doing, because a lot of people are still thinking like, yeah, but you work with clay, but it's on a computer, and how do you do it? And then you say, oh, I draw on a screen, and then they're totally confused. And in this case, like I I can hold it. I can go up to my grandmother who's almost 90 years old, right?
You
And I can
carry that thing. You carry your
yeah,
thing with you all the time, and you take it out
yeah,
of pocket
yeah,
when
but I
someone.
can show it. I can show it to her, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, that's special." That's the first thing that she would say.
Of course,
Of course,
nice,
not that.
nice person.
Yeah, it's like that's special, and but then she also gets an idea what you're actually doing for a living because
Yeah,
you're able to show something physical to them instead of purely on a screen or on a phone or on a tablet, because it's something tactical, something that they can touch.
yeah, yeah.
And
That's true. It's
that's
true.
the yeah, that's the biggest advice that I would give to people that are digital sculpting now, and they want to go into the next step. Please investigate and search up 3D printing things and get your stuff out there in the real world.
Yeah,
It's a big difference. It's a total different skill set that you have to learn because it's physical, and especially with this type of printers, like you have to learn your how to clean your prints, how to set them up. You have to learn what works, what doesn't work in 3D print, and everything. But the results are incredible.
yeah.
Being able to hold something physically in your hands.
That head
And
looks
yeah,
dope.
same thing for you, right? You've been also 3D printing last year.
Last 5 months or six,
Yeah.
something like that. I've been quite
Okay.
enjoying it. It can be painful until I
Still
look.
novice.
Yeah, yeah. I'm novice, novice DarMar. I've been doing it for some time, and I'm quite enjoying it. It's a PLA and printing inside 44 stuff. For example, I love printing Fusion 360 stuff because I literally press the button and it comes out. But my previous models in ZBrush, such as Earth Giant, are not optimized for 3D printing. Don't ask me how they look, and that thing can't be printed. It can't be printed. I need to optimize it, and my head starts hurting every time I think about it. But yeah, it has been. It opened my reality, changed my reality and perception of the art when I have it printed. I knew that from car design before, but now I understand it even more. For example, one vehicle I printed, and I realized it has some mistakes, and I would never be able to see that kind of stuff on the 3D because I could feel it in the real life how it looks.
Yeah, and also being able to have something physical on a table, and what I also do quite often is when I have a 3D print, I put it on the table, I open up my phone, and I look through my phone to the 3D print in different lens angles to figure out like what went wrong, what went okay, because that's also something that you have to learn, because once you put something in a certain scale into the physical world, it will kind of look and feel differently. But you want to transfer the same thing that you see on the screen, of course.
I agree. I completely agree. Okay, I think we are ready to wrap up this.
Cool.
We're going. I really enjoyed the talk with you, Maarten Verhoeven. Did I pronounce it good?
You did it in the English way, but yeah.
Okay, let's try it one more time. Maarten Verhoeven.
Yeah, close enough.
Okay, close enough. I like that when I'm pronouncing that, I'm looking at the monkey and I see myself in the mirror, literally. On the screen. Maarten Verhoeven. So like I'm a monkey, literally. Yeah, perfect timing. Thank you for that. So thank you so much for coming and talking with me, and thank you for showing me all of this cool stuff, and to the guests. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stream and heard a lot of new cool stuff from Maarten. And I hope to see you on the next episode, guys. The next episodes, I have someone special again, almost special as Maarten. And I'm sure that you will enjoy quite a lot. So, Maarten, we are finishing with this. And I hope to see you very soon, somewhere in the world.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe who knows? Maybe on the ZBrush Summit, or maybe on FCC. Who knows? We will see. So have a great day, guys, or the night. I don't know what's time at your place. See you on the next episode, and see you, Maarten. Bye.
Okay. Cheers.